WHGE 95.3 FM. Coming up, the Open Eye.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression on our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host, Third Eye Optometrist, Patrice Gibbs. Yes, D, got them ready. Getting ready to open that eye. You're going to learn something today, because I learned something before I got here. All right. And as we always start off, every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. Yes, indeed. And we do that here. You know what? Let me get my disclaimer out the way right quick. All right.
The views and opinions expressed on the Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM, nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
All right. Hey, Sherry, I see you, sister. You know, it's something, one of the debates that I've had with people is where we came from. It's real crazy. How did we get here? You know, one of the guys that I follow, was it Port Vibe News? I think that's what he calls his TikTok site. He calls them pretendians. You know, and we have these people that, you know, the Mississippi is actually the Nile. Egypt was here in North America. Jeez Louise, get some education, read a book. It's legal. I swear, it's really legal. You can actually read a book and find out the truth about these things. One of the things that comes out of that camp of so-called conscious people who don't want to be African is that we were here when the supercontinent, when all the landmass was one. It's called Pangea. So when the world's great land masses were all joined together. Well, Pangea broke apart. And I hear black people say that this explains how the various black peoples of the world became scattered. Really? The problem with this theory is that it occurred tens of millions of years before humanity appeared in the world, and therefore has no relevance. Number two, it denies that our ancestors had the genius, perseverance, tenacity, and spirit to engage in migration and exploration. Forget Pangea. We're better than that. All talk of Pangea should have been trashed a long time ago. Because it's just nonsense. It's non-factual and it's insulting to black people and our history. just got to know that. You know, and it's something that, you know, like I said, these people have this slave mentality, and they're not African. You know, had nothing to do with African. Brother Vaughn, I see you there. Brother Holland. And, you know, I don't want to, well, I'll say like this. My biggest fear is getting to the afterlife and my ancestors stand there with their hands out to welcome me, and they notice that my hands don't have any scars like theirs do. And then then they ask me, did you not continue our fight? Even worse than that, when I see some of the things that black people do, are the refusal to learn our history. You know, we're walking around with these cell phones that are pretty much handheld computers. You know, yeah, Sister Sherry, they want to be Israelites, Jews, and anything else but African. Don't want to know our history. They, you know, and it's something where I look at some of our people who have achieved mainstream success, and some of our people that are looking to. What's up, Steve? You know, and like I said, they don't want to deal with our history. This wasn't us. They want their turn to hold the whip. They're not looking to get out of the oppression. They're looking for a comfortable spot within global white supremacy. Not knowing our history, not knowing how bad things are, not knowing the ancestors of the people that you're dealing with. Let me ask you this, just to give you an idea, because most of us don't realize that slavery was a lot worse than you're taught. Even some of us that have learned about what went on. For instance, are you familiar with the spiked gag mask that slave women were required to wear for an entire generation until our native tongue was forgotten? It not only covered the mouth, but it had blades in the mouth to cut with even the slightest movement of the tongue. You know why? According to several captain's logs, yes, those captain logs still exist. For those of you that want to know, where are the boats? I'm going to deal with you in a second. According to several captains' logs, the women were said to have the power to speak enchantments that will cause slave takers to drop dead on the spot. You talk about speaking into existence. So they silenced them and took away the language and demonized all indigenous forms of worship and ritual. And like I said, where are the boats? First of all, you have to understand, and this is for the pretendians. Right? We were already here. There was no transatlantic slave trade. And he popped them upside the head. Anytime someone comes at you with that, one, there's documented evidence that was documented by the oppressor, by the colonizers. And I mean, it's thousands of pages, captain's logs, reports, written histories. Since you won't accept the oral traditions of African peoples that were enslaved, and those boats were not meant to last 300-400 years, 200 years even. And when you don't know your own history, anybody can fool you. That's how you get nuts like Sister Sherry had mentioned, the Hebrew Israelites. When you believe in a fantasy, you run around wearing costumes. And you must self-educate in order to self-liberate. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Yeah, I see you, Sister Sherry. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM. This is the Open Eye. Sister Sherry mentioned something. It was more than that. The Zongu colonizers had sexual and cannibalistic fetishes. Okay. And this was for the enslaved people. There's a book. Just imagine. Like I said, as bad as you think slavery was, it was a lot worse. Because part of that history was cannibalism. And this was so extensive that there's actually a book written about that, which Sister Sherry mentions, The Delectable Negro. And I tell you, it's something when you hear about these historical lynchings that went on after slavery. The cannibalism didn't stop. And as a matter of fact, it was a major part. They would burn, basically rotisserie black people. And then there was a big fight or contest. Who got the best parts? They would cut out their kidneys and livers and fry them. What kind of people are these? Yeah. And I have to tell you something, that a lot of us are confused, because do you actually believe that the effects of 400 years of institutional racism came to an abrupt halt in 1965, 1964, when they voted in the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act? They may have put these things in the law in 1964 and 1965. But integration really didn't come about until the 70s. It was like 10 years later. Brown versus Board of Education took place in the 50s. Schools here in Delaware weren't, quote unquote, desegregated until 1977. I was 16. That's right, Brother Jardeo. See you there. Now, it is something that we put up with this. You know, I'm gonna get into some propaganda. Let me deal with a little history here before I get there. Before I come back to that. All right. When Michael Jackson was asked when he was a little boy about his influences, probably his most obvious influence, which lasted throughout his life, was James Brown. But he also stated that one of his major influences, someone that he really looked up to, was Sammy Davis Jr. A lot of us don't know of the extent of Sammy's talent. And Sammy Davis Jr. was a legendary American entertainer, African-American entertainer, known for his extraordinary talent as a singer, dancer, actor, comedian, and musician. Played several instruments. And this cat did it all. Stand-up comedian. Yeah, could do impersonations as well as Rich Little, or what's one man from Good Times? I can't think of his name. Or maybe somebody can help me out. He was a great impressionist. Sammy was. Now, Sammy was born into a show business family in Harlem, New York. Born in 1925. Davis began performing at a young age and quickly rose to fame for his charismatic stage presence and exceptional versatility. And you can look on YouTube and you can find the video of Sammy when he was like 10 years old, 8, 10 years old, maybe even younger than that. He was singing his little ass off, man. His career spanned several decades, and he became a trailblazer in breaking down racial barriers in entertainment. As an African-American performer in the mid-20th century, he faced significant challenges due to segregation and discrimination, yet he persevered and achieved remarkable success. Excuse me. In the realm of music, Sammy Davis Jr. excelled as a singer across various genres, including jazz, pop, rhythm and blues. He recorded numerous hit songs such as Candyman, I Gotta Be Me, Mr. Bojangles, which showcased his smooth vocals and captivating delivery. As a dancer, Davis was renowned for his agility and flair, incorporating elements of tact and acrobatics into his performances. His energetic dance routines were a signature part of his stage shows. I remember when they gave Sammy his flowers before he died. One of his dance children, one of his proteges, someone that looked up to him, was the great Gregory Hines. Did a standout performance and then brung Sammy up on stage, who was really sick at the time. And he and Sammy danced together. And Sammy did a dance move where he ended with shaving the haircut 2 bits, you know. Bump, bum, 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 bum. Blew Gregory Hines' mind. It blew Gregory Hines' mind to the extent that Gregory Hines dropped down on his knees and kissed Sammy's feet. In addition to his musical talents, Sammy Davis Jr. was a skilled actor who appeared in films, television shows. He starred in movies such as Ocean's 11 alongside Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. Movies like The Robin and the Seven Hoods. His charismatic presence on screen and comedic timing endeared him to audiences. Beyond his entertainment career, Davis was also known for his involvement in civil rights causes and his friendships with prominent figures like Dr. King. He used his platform to advocate for racial equality and social justice, making him a respected figure both in and out of show business. Sammy Davis Jr.'s legacy continues to be celebrated for his groundbreaking achievements in entertainment and his enduring impact on popular culture. His talent, resilience, and trailblazing spirit have left an indelible mark on history and on American entertainment. Sammy Davis Jr., WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Yes, indeed. I'll mention that when I come back on there right now. Thank you, Sister Sherry. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM. Patrice Gibbs, third eye optometrist, and Sister Sherry said, don't forget the movie Tact, where Sammy and Gregory acted together. Right? You know, it's something that whenever you're in a business or a field or whatever, And you point to those that came before, point out the doors that they opened and what have you. And any one that knows me knows I've been involved in journalism and what have you, 30 years now, more. Often hear me mention, especially when I talk about the open eye and why we do it. And my journalistic hero was Edward R. Murrow. Another man that I look to with great achievements, has some strong criticisms for, is of course a black man, and that's Max Robinson. Max Robinson, television journalist and the first African-American man to anchor a nightly network newscast. Robinson was also the first African-American to anchor a local news program in Washington, D.C. In addition, Robinson was a founder of the National Association of Black Journalists. Robinson began his career in 1959 when he was hired for a news job in Portsmouth, Virginia. However, Robinson was forced to read the news while hidden behind a slide of the station's logo. It's 1959, so his viewers wouldn't know he was black. One night, Robinson had the slide removed and was fired the next day. He later went to WHGE in Washington, D.C., stayed there for 3 years, winning 6 journalism awards for coverage of the civil rights events, such as the riots that followed the 1968 assassination of Dr. King. It was during this time that Robinson won 2 regional Emmys for a documentary he made on Black life and in Anacostia entitled The Other Washington. In 1969, Robinson joined the Eyewitness News team at WTOP-TV, now WUSA-TV, in Washington, D.C. Robinson was teamed with anchor Gordon Peterson, becoming the first African-American anchor on local television news program, and the newscast took off. During that time, he was so well liked by viewers that when Hanafi Muslims took hostages at the B'nai B'rith building in Washington, they would speak only with Robinson. In 1978, when Roone Arledge was looking to revamp ABC News nightly news broadcast into World News Tonight, he remembered Robinson from a 60 Minutes interview and hired him to be part of his new 3-anchor format. Robinson would anchor national news from Chicago, while Peter Jennings would anchor international news in London, and Frank Reynolds would be the main anchor from Washington. Robinson thus became the first black man to anchor a nightly network news broadcast. Robinson was also known to fight racism at every turn. Although he was doing well, Robinson's ABC tenure was still marked by conflicts between himself and the management of ABC News over viewpoints and the portrayal of Black America in the news. Robinson retired in 1985. I had some criticisms for Max Robinson, and I know the history says that he would fight about the way blacks were portrayed. But I can remember many times the brother sitting there while this propaganda was pushed about the criminality of blackness. And like I said, I had some strong criticisms for that brother on that. Because the propaganda that was being pushed and still being pushed in the news and what have you. And you just look at the recent attacks, the recent violence that has taken place, where it was a black person, called a terrorist, or it's a white person, or a non-black, or you have mental illness. And that's what we have to deal with, that propaganda. That's why I do this. I want to check out this quote. There was no point in seeking to convert the intellectuals. Okay? The right wing has learned this well. The intellectuals would never be converted and would anyway always yield to the stronger. And this will always be the man in the street. Arguments must therefore be crude, clear, and forcible, and appeal to emotions and instincts, not the intellect. Truth was unimportant and entirely subordinate to tactics and psychology. That's a quote on propaganda by one of the most nefarious propagandists in history, Joseph Goebbels, the Third Reich. And it's something that we don't learn about propaganda and its effects. And we don't teach it in our school. But did you know that the German high school students learned about U.S. propaganda in their English courses in high school? Got this from this TikTok commentator. Yeah, they learn about U.S. propaganda in their English courses in high school. Okay? And with this, commentator said that a follower asked to send her a textbook that they use in German 11th to 13th grade English courses to study U.S. propaganda. In the United States, where we study German World War II propaganda, in Germany, they're studying current U.S. propaganda. They cover everything from U.S. can't get that out. U.S. exceptionalism to the American dream. And they show German students how U.S. citizens have been led to have a lack of self-critical awareness, to how their ideals have failed. That's why we have an oligarchy. That's how you get someone in office like the tangerine terrorist, the orange disaster. Now, this commentator said they didn't want to believe it at first, but if you Google the name of the textbook and the word Abitur, which is the final stage of German high school, it returns all kinds of study slides. And what really shook me is that on one of these study guides, it says the U.S. has become a wasteful consumer society of lonely individuals. So if you ever wonder how some people outside the U.S. view the U.S., there you go. Hey, brother Lawrence. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM, the education advocacy station. Yes, indeed, Brother James, what's up? All right. Thanks for joining us. American exceptionalism. It's a myth. It's a myth. And that's something that we don't deal with, is the mythology. It's something, we read things that are fictional, that are mythology, and accept it as literal. That's how we get so mixed up with religion versus spirituality. Religion worships God. Spirituality encourages oneness with God. Religion, God is outside of you. Spirituality, God is within you. Religion separates people who have different beliefs. Spirituality unites people regardless of their beliefs. Yeah, and that's why when the Moors conquered Southern Europe, okay, those under their rule were allowed to come to God by whatever mythology they understood. And as soon as the Moors ran out, you had the Spanish Inquisition. If you weren't a Christian, you were murdered. When religion teaches people to be afraid of hell, spirituality teaches people to create heaven on earth. God is within. Religion is based on fear and restriction. If you don't obey God, you're going to hell, or you're going to burn in hell. Spirituality is based on love and freedom. Religion feels like a single drop in the ocean. Spirituality feels like being the entire ocean in a single drop. Yeah, what's that mean? Often I state that we are spiritual beings having a human existence or a human experience. Religion is based on others' experiences. Spirituality is based on your personal experience. You have to wonder, how do you get here? I'll tell you one of the darkest secrets that Christians, reject. Brother Jafar, right? The Roman Empire never actually fell. It just transformed into the Catholic Church. You heard that right. Emperor Constantine didn't just convert to Christianity in 312 AD. He pulled off the greatest power move in history. Pagan temples became churches overnight. Roman senators became bishops. The emperor's title, Pontifex Maximus, guess who holds it now? The Pope. The Vatican's hierarchy mirrors ancient Roman government. Even their ceremonial clothes, those aren't biblical, they're Roman imperial dress. When Rome's political power crumbled, the church preserved Roman authority. Latin remained the official language. Roman law became canon law. The most shocking part of those fancy bishop chairs and cathedrals, they're exact copies of Roman magistrate seats. It's same design, different Empire Roman robes. Didn't just carry soldiers. They carried missionaries. Roman organizational genius didn't conquer lands, now it converted souls. And this isn't taught in Sunday school. The Roman Empire never died. It just wears a cross now. One of the cultural machinations of Rome is definitely in the Roman Catholic Church. And it's actually a problem throughout Christianity. In Roman culture, the height of eroticism was to have a 14-year-old boy for a lover. For the past 40 years, it's been exposed that Catholic priests are some of the worst pedophiles in our society. Yeah. You think these people actually believe in Christianity? Because if they did, they would be worried about burning in hell for the nasty crap that they do. They're not. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. I see your brother Jafari is just talking about that. Yeah, we talk about it often here. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. I'm your third eye optometrist. You don't need an appointment. Just come on in. I take walk-ins. Need your eye open? Come on over. Come on over to the Open Eye. Yeah. You know, it's something that the prevalent thought amongst white supremacists that black people aren't qualified for anything. Right? Which is amazing. Which is absolutely amazing. That they had this, you know, because they, you know, and he thought of affirmative action. You know, if you got a job, you didn't get it on your own merit, on your own skill, on your own intelligence. You got it because of affirmative action, or the new N word, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. You know, it makes me think of when I worked in the printing business. Right. The crazy thing about that is some of our own people believe that. I've told this story several times about the black woman that came in the print shop and asked me where the white guy was that worked there, because she didn't think I would know enough to handle her project. I had to put up with that, as well as, you know, the numerous white people that came in and decided they knew more about printing than I did. I'm in here running this place. In today's episode of DEI is from Zach Lindley. White conservatives have proven once again that they will take any event, no matter how irrelevant the subject of diversity, equity, and inclusion is, to said event and make it about DEI hiring the second they find out someone in a top position of authority is involved who is not a white man. At around 3 a.m., a maniac intentionally rammed his truck into a crowd of people on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, killing 15 people. And what authorities now have confirmed is being investigated as a terrorist event. But in the early beginnings of the investigation, New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell and the FBI Assistant Special Agent in charge, Althea Duncan, made contradicting remarks during a news conference regarding whether or not the attack was, at the time, officially classified as a terrorist attack. During the early morning press conference, Cantrell referred to the attack carried out by 42-year-old Shamsuddin Bahar Jabbar, who was shot and killed during a standoff with police, as a terrorist attack. Later during the conference, Duncan remarked that the attack was not, at the time, considered a terrorist event by the FBI and that the investigation is still underway. She also mentioned that investigators found an explosive device on the scene and that the FBI is trying to determine if the device is viable. Later on, the FBI confirmed that the attack is being investigated as a terrorist attack. Now, if you're a smart, non-bigoted person, you're probably asking yourself a couple of very obvious questions. What's the big deal considering mayors and top law enforcement officials get their messaging mixed up during the initial reporting of an event all the time? More importantly, what does this have to do with DEI? Well, the answer to the latter question is simple. Althea Duncan is a black woman. Y'all so goddamn racist. Duncan could have just as easily been a white man who made a statement that contradicted a statement made by the mayor. If that had been the case, no one would have assumed the assistant special agent in charge unilaterally makes the decisions on how an event is classified during the initial investigation. They also wouldn't likely assume the initial mix-up was a clear indication that the investigation was being mishandled, especially considering the news conference took place just hours after the killing occurred. And white people certainly wouldn't jump to the conclusion that the FBI's assistant special agent in charge was a DEI hire, based on virtually nothing with no reason at all to assume the agent was underqualified. But Althea Duncan is a black woman. So here we are. Excuse me. Some on social media got fake mad at Duncan because she initially appeared on camera wearing a nose ring, which people remarked violated FBI dress code. Who gives a damn? As if that's remotely relevant to anything. Do these people understand that 10 innocent civilians were killed? Is this really their focus? Jeez Louise, FBI DEI is now trending on X, formerly Twitter. Illegal immigrant president Musk website, or whatever it is, social media site. Not because a single person on social media has offered a shred of evidence that Duncan is underqualified for her job, or that the FBI isn't conducting a thorough investigation, but because Althea Duncan is a black woman. That's it, that's all. For another example of how easy it is for white conservatives to disrespect and disregard black women no matter what position they hold, here's U.S. Senator John Kennedy, Republican from Louisiana, nudging Duncan out of the way without so much as an excuse me or even making eye contact as he stepped in front of her at the podium, where he took the opportunity to make politically charged wisecracks and media reporters during the news conference regarding the Delhi terrorist attack. There's no proof, no class. Brother Jafar said he noticed the nose ring and laughed, and he knew there would be white lash. In 2022, Kennedy, I'm getting mixed up with the Kennedys of Boston, and his name is actually John. I think they were from a different plantation, or they came over from Ireland on different boats. This John Kennedy, Republican from Louisiana, white supremacist, responded to President Joe Biden's pledge to nominate a black woman to the Supreme Court by saying, number one, I want a nominee who knows a law book from J. Crew catalog. Son of a bitch. And number two, I want a nominee who's not going to try to rewrite the Constitution every other Thursday to advance a woke agenda. Apparently, he heard black woman and imagined Angela Davis, but also Hillary Banks from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Okay? Biden will go on to nominate Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who has decades of experience in the American legal system, including her time as an appellate court judge and a federal trial court judge. But that doesn't matter, because that was never what the white conservative complaints were ever about. Here's what's his name? I got this from. Zach Lindley wrote at the time Kennedy's remarks. The Republican outrage over President Joe Biden's pledge to nominate a black woman for the next Supreme Court isn't about their fear that someone unqualified will end up on the bench. They're just racist. They're also sexist, but not so sexist that they had any issue when Trump pledged to pick a woman for the position before nominating Amy Coney Barrett, or when Ronald Reagan made roast in hell, made the devil sodomize him with a pitchfork, pledged the same before nominating Sandra Day O'Connor. They didn't have a problem with celebrating Sarah Palin being a heartbeat away from the presidency, despite her constantly demonstrating that she doesn't actually know anything about anything. That's Prince's dumbass from the Northern Woods. Donald Trump didn't have a single day of political experience when he was first voted into the highest position in the country. Barack Obama had degrees up the yin-yang, Harvard Law Review, first black person, and so on and so forth. Education, now unbelievable. Highly accomplished. And what did white America do? Elected one of the dumbest people, barely illiterate, rapist, 34-count felon. It goes on. He was elected after years of lies, bigotry, observable incompetence, and the spreading of propaganda that inspired a terrorist event on January 6th. He's been elected back into the White House by the same people who believe Jackson and Duncan are DEI hires, for no other reason than they're black women. These people are racist. It's really that simple. They're just racist. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. Oh, come on. All right. Brother Gary, thanks for joining us. Sister Ruth, see you, Queen. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. And you know, it's something. I talked about it last week. You haven't heard. December the 9th, inmate Robert Brooks was brutally beaten to death. Murdered. correctional officers involved, including a member of the medical staff who sat there and watched it. If you haven't seen the video, I'm not going to advise you to watch it. It's horrific. It's traumatizing. I said that last week. There was one scene where one of the murder perpetrators held up the limp body by the neck and proudly looked into the camera. They still haven't been charged. You know, what, over 20 days later? And these bastards still haven't been charged? It's Marcy, New York. Governor Kathy Hochul feeling the pressure. So it's taken too long for these charges to be filed in the December killing of Robert Brooks in Marcy Correctional Facility. Now that the governor released a statement on Thursday, now that the Attorney General has appointed the Onondaga District Attorney as special prosecutor, I expect prosecutors will work expeditiously to bring formal charges and make arrests for the killing of Robert Brooks. Too much time has passed without charges being brought against the individuals responsible. The video of this horrific attack demonstrates that crimes clearly were committed, and I believe initial charges can be brought even as more serious charges are considered based on further investigation. While it is outside the power of my office to order arrests or bring charges, my team has offered any necessary resources to help prosecutors move as quickly as possible to ensure that justice is served. The family of Mr. Brooks deserves no further delays. It's just crazy, man. 13 of the 14 correctional officers have been suspended without pay. One resigned, but the governor has called for all involved to be fired. In that case, collective bargaining requires a process before bargaining because they're in the union. It's just crazy. Meanwhile, a conflict of interest caused the Attorney General's recusal in the investigation. 4 officers involved in the beating of Robert Brooks, Glenn Tromby, Anthony Farina, Nicholas Anzalone, and Robert Kessler had previous lawsuits filed against them and are being represented by members of the Office of the Attorney General. See, that's why this qualified immunity is effed up. They'll have to pay for their own goddamn lawyers. Lock these fools up. They're murderers, plain and simple. Not only are they murderers, plain and simple, they have no sense of humanity. Just fired? That's what Sister Sherry said. Just fired? They all need to be prosecuted and thrown under the jail. Goddamn right. Robert Brooks is a black man. Every last one of those correctional officers was white. And they enjoyed what they were doing. It's obvious on camera. They took turns. I will never forget the look on the face of one of the correctional officers that held this limp body up. As if to say, because there's no sound to the video, big surprise. He held that body up as if to say, yeah, we got this ninja. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. Okay, this week, Jimmy Carter died. He lived longer than any president. He was 100 years old when he died. A friend of mine said, he wasn't too good a president, but he is, he's a decent man. Okay, and why'd you say that? Because that's really a valid question. If Jimmy Carter was a good president, then why was he crushed so thoroughly by Ronald Reagan, made roast in hell, made the devil sodomizing with a pitchfork in the 1980 election? And why had they been fed the lie for years that Carter was a great man but not a good president? To understand this, you have to understand that Jimmy Carter, during the course of his presidency, pissed off two incredibly influential groups of people: oil barons and captains of industry. You see, Carter was not a fan of the corporate types who like to slash regulations and slash worker protections so they can pay their workers less and raise prices on customers for no reason. In fact, he specifically championed legislation that prevented this kind of corruption, which irritated these captains of industry and these corporate gangsters. On the other hand, he was also incredibly pro-environment. He was very much in favor of green energy. Famously, remember, he put a bunch of solar panels on top of the White House with the plan of making it a fully green energy fuel. And that scared the hell out of the fossil fuel gangsters who are worried that it singled the end of the United States government being their main support, funding them basically. They were worried that their industry was to become worthless. So what do both these groups do? Well, they threw all their support behind someone who is famously corrupt, famously friendly to their business, and that, of course, was the Republican demon, Ronald Reagan. And of course, they put all their money behind him and what have you. And one of the things that I reminded my friend was that the thing that really was a strong factor was the Iranian hostages. And they weren't released until January 20th, 1981, the exact day that Ronald Reagan made roast in hell, made the devil sodomizing with a pitchfork, got sworn in, and it gave the impression that on day one, Reagan did something about the hostages. That actually, he illegally cut a deal with those holding the American hostages to make sure that they didn't release them until after the election, that would make sure that Jimmy Carter lost the election. The Republican demon won. And like I said, it made it look like he actually did something about the Iranian hostages. His ass should have went to jail. I remember when Jimmy Carter pointed out that the Tea Party is racist. The conservatives and the sorry-ass media, including CNN, MSNBC, and of course Fox News, had a little hissy fit. I remember Rosalind Carter said Ronald Reagan made roast to hell, made the devil sodomizing with a pitchfork. He made it all right and comfortable for white supremacists to be outwardly racist. And when Jimmy Carter called these racists out, He was labeled a doddering old man speaking out of turn and accused of finding racism where there was none. Which listen, let me tell you something. I told you this before. When former President Jimmy Carter from rural Georgia in the damn 1920s says something is racist, he knows what the hell he's talking about. Can you imagine the number of toothless crackers he grew up around? No, you can't. Don't even try. Because if you didn't grow up during a time when racism was seen as the way things were, where a white person who was polite to a black person was seen as a traitor to their race, where being a dirt poor white man meant that you had to find someone to beat up on, and you sure as hell weren't going to go after the rich white people that were actually keeping you down. Where there was more lynching of blacks than any other state but Mississippi, you shut the hell up and listen to what Jimmy Carter said, because he knows from racists. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. All right. Going a little overtime here, that's okay. And one of the things I talked about earlier was how we define ourselves. Now, I've seen this brother say this. Black people cannot define what blackness is. Blackness will always be defined under a white supremacist system. They want the term black to center around negative connotations. Anything positive that comes from the black community will be distorted and manipulated to appear and become negative. Hip-hop into gangster rap. Mapuka into over-sexualized twerking. Black Lives Matter into a terrorist organization. Pro-black consciousness into black identity extremism. Black love into anti-whiteism. Self-love into hate speech. Any attempt to redefine blackness will result in being silenced or taken out. White supremacy seeks to reinforce the negative stereotypes associated with blackness through controlling the image and definition of blackness. They created stigmas around blackness so that whenever black is a prefix, it is instinctively seen as bad. Black men, black women, black children, black fathers, black neighborhood, black love, black heart, black revolution, and anything that cannot be twisted into a negative will be seen as not black. Okay? And you know what? This is what Brother Angel said, and I agree with him. That's why I stopped caring about their definitions. Because no matter what I do or say, I will always be seen as negative. Seeking approval from those that hate you is a futile task. And maybe we can't redefine blackness in a white society, but we can stop caring about what they think of us. And like my mom always said, what you think of me is none of my business. And we can stop seeking their validation and stop allowing them to steal the things they convince us are negative. Our music, our people, our land. I am African. Yes, a descendant of enslaved Africans. Okay? But I will never allow them to define who I am or my blackness. I'm coming to the close here. Having been raised a revolutionary, I do not like to be put in a position where I have to be reactionary. However, being that I am unforgiving, when wrong, I believe in revenge. I sure as hell do. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. The hell with that. You kill my cat, I'm going to shoot your horse, kill both your dogs, turn over your fish tank, and feed your kid's hamster to my new cat. You get it? For those that say things like it was no big deal, you don't have to answer everything. Just let it go. Let me tell you something. I never let the smallest racial incident go. I go off every time. Ask anybody to know me. Every joke, every sly comment or perceived insult is met with fire and venom. Cross the line. Stick a toe over the line. I'm going to cut it the hell off. Oh, you're oversensitive. That will get you cussed the hell out. I bet you don't do that no more. Let me tell you something. Racist crap happens to me from the same person once. Once. WHGE 95.3 FM. Closing out the open eye. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Sister Sherry, for your contributions. Brother Jardea, for your contributions. And others, including Vaughn. Thank you all for joining in. And as we always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. This has been Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs. All right. Thank you for joining me. And I always tell you, global African supremacy, because the world was a much better place. Everybody ate when the African ruled.